Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Defy Aging. And I'm Coach Allison, and we are in week 40, and that means it's another mobility week. So this week we're going to take a different angle. It's going to be focusing on mobility, range of motion, loosening up those joints, maybe getting a little flexibility, so some stretching in. So it'll be, I don't want to say less intensity, because for many of us, some of these things will be still pretty intense, but it's just intense in a different way. It won't be as high cardio, so might not be getting as out of breath. And there's no weights involved, so no resistance training. But again, some of the movements can still be pretty tricky in their own way. So let's see how you feel about them as we go through these. But anyways, there are 6 movements, and we're going to be rotating around the turf in a circuit style. We're going to go through the rotation 3 times. Everything is 60 seconds on, which sounds long, but I wanted to do 60 seconds because a lot of the movements are slow, purposefully slow. And so if you're doing something slowly, you just want to give it a little more time. And so you can really focus on the mind-muscle connection and really focus on those range of motion type of movements. Anyway, so 60 seconds on, and then a 30-second rest. And a lot of that rest time, even if we don't need the rest to catch our breath or anything like that, we want a 30-second transition time just to get from one station to the next. And sometimes there's a little bit of setup involved. So 60 on, 30 off, 3 rounds, 6 exercises. Let's review what those are. Okay, this first one you actually know pretty well because it's in our warm-up. It's the 90-90 stretch, but it's a different take on it because we're going to do it for the function of mobility as opposed to just a stretch. So it does have a little bit of movement involved. So it'll look a little different, but you are familiar with it already. Okay, so we start like this, but we're going to start leaning back on the hands, and we're going to start with the feet pretty wide apart. And then what we do is dip to one side. Now this is typically how we've been holding our isometric stretch. So we come up and then we dip to the other side. And we're just going to keep this moving. Now what you might notice is after a few reps, your butt kind of crawls away from your hands. So every few reps, if you feel like you need to scoot back, that's fine. Or you can kind of more consciously, and it involves a little more focus to do this, more consciously just keep yourself from sliding forward. But if it does happen, that's fine. Reposition as needed. If you have the mobility and the flexibility in your hips and knees, do try to get the legs all the way to the side and get the full side of each leg to touch the floor. But we all can't do that, right? And that's why we're working on this mobility. So if you can't quite get the full leg to touch the floor, that's fine. Go as far as you can. Now, for anyone that is staying off the floor for any of our movements, this one can do it seated on something. Ideally, you want something kind of low. This is a tiny bit high, but it's just what I have right here. You don't get as much mobility out of it, but it does still work. So you'll sit really close to the edge, still put the feet kind of wide, and turn like this. You might have to do a little more turning with your feet, but you can still dip the knees to the side like this, and you'll still feel that movement in the hips and that rotation. Again, you can't get quite as much mobility and range of motion as the floor, but it does still work. So give it a try, but that's our 90-90 mobility, a little bit different than our 90-90 isometric stretch. All right, the next one involves 3 different movements altogether. And that's why one reason I wanted to make these sets 60 seconds long, because some of these take a while. So we're going to be going from a child's pose stretch into a cat pose into an upward dog. Lots of names, right? Okay, this one I think I might need a little more space. Okay. So you want to hold each different position for anywhere from 3 to 5 seconds, but you do want to give each of the 3 different poses a good amount of time to really get the stretch out of it, right? So don't be flying through this too quickly. But I think we've done all of these over the years at different times, and maybe not all together. So child's pose starts like this. We do this one a lot, so I know you all know this one. So we hold this for a few seconds. Cat pose, so you come up to all fours, and we round that spine, drop the head, and tuck the hips under. Okay, so our cat pose, hold that for 3 to 5 seconds. An upward dog is sinking the hips down and looking the head up Hold this for 3 to 5 seconds. And then you sort of just push back to the start. Child's pose again. 3 to 5 seconds. I'm going to go a little faster just to get the demo done. Cat pose, round that back. And upward dog. Okay. So that's great for the spine. Primarily the spine. You're going to get some shoulders. You're going to get a good chest stretch for that in that upward dog. You're going to feel a lot of stretches here. So that one goes very slow. You might only get through maybe 3 of those sequences, maybe 4, maybe 5. I'm trying to do the math quickly in my head. But if you hold each one for that 3 to 5 seconds, you don't get through too many of them. That, again, is why we're doing 60-second sets. So give that one a try. Now, if you're unable to get on the floor, it is going to be quite different. We can't do all those exact same movements on an incline, but we can get all the same effects doing, I did kind of forget, actually, doing alternating between a cat pose and a bird dog on the incline. So use your bench. Okay, so we're going to still do cat pose, which is incline cat pose. You still want to round that back, tuck the hips under, drop the head. But then we're going to come into a single-sided bird dog. Get that stretch back to our cat pose. And then other side bird dog. So you just keep alternating which sides that you're doing your bird dog. That'll be our alternative for anyone who is unable to get to the floor or avoiding the floor exercises. All right, this one might get a little tricksy. We do have 3 rounds to perfect it, so let's give it a try. All right, next station is some more hips, mini band, wide steps. So we're going to put the mini band around the lower part of the leg, ankle, maybe a tiny bit higher than the ankle, and walking forward in a wide zigzag pattern. So take as wide of a step as you can. You can't bring the feet all the way together, because if you do, the band falls down, right? So just bring your feet as close together as you can until you feel like that band is at its loosest. Wide step in a zigzag. Okay, you get the gist. We're not going to go backwards. When you get to the end of wherever route your coach has for you, turn around, go forward again. We're only going to go forwards. But again, wide step, wide as you can in a zigzag pattern. And that's our mini band, wide step. Use a challenging band too. We really want to challenge those hips. Next up is a banded back pull. And this is really good for like the shoulder blade, like the scapula. Okay. It's good for shoulder and back mobility. Okay. Now it's going to be really tempting to turn into a row. You have to really remind yourself, your coaches will probably have to remind you too, not to turn it into a row, because that's exactly what it's going to look like. So we have a band tied up against something, okay? But I want you to grab, how do I show this? The opposite side bands. So this would be the same side. I'm going to cross them and grab the opposite side. I don't know if you can tell that the band is crossed here. Because of the way we're going to do this, that's going to add, it's going to make it more the appropriate pattern. Because what we're going to be doing is not bending at the elbows. We're just going to be retracting our shoulders and our shoulder blades. And when you do that, your arms kind of naturally drift apart. See from the front how they're doing that? So if you're grabbing the bands, just the correct sides, left side, right side, there's no resistance really there at all. But if you grab the opposing sides and your arms are opening up, drifting open, you're going to be having some resistance as you pull. I hope that kind of made sense. Some of you don't even care maybe about the why, but I explained it anyway. So grab the opposite side bands. And I sort of already explained what we're doing. So keep the arms straight so it's not a row. There's no elbow bending at all. Retract your shoulders. You should feel those shoulder blades just kind of drifting back and together. It's a really small movement. You might be tempted to bend the elbows and pull because that'll make it a bigger movement. And this is a really small movement. You're only moving a couple of inches. That's okay. Okay, I think you get the gist here. When you're doing this one properly, the chest will come forward. You're kind of doing like a chest pop, popping out that chest. I'm going to show you a different angle, more of my back. So you can kind of get a, maybe sort of see what between my shoulder blades here, what's going on. I'm squeezing those shoulder blades together. Now a row would look like this, but that's not what we're doing. Okay, so I can only show you so many reps. I hope that made sense. Lock those elbows in, grab the opposing side of the bands, and let's give this one a try. Okay, this one is a super standard hip exercise. It's a hip opener, hip mobility. It's a fire hydrant. So you're on all fours. We're just going to be lifting that leg to the side. So start in a nice quadruped position, but make sure the hands are right below the shoulders so they're not too far out here. And the knees are right below the hips, okay? From here, keep your neck nice and neutral. So we're not going to be looking straight ahead. And we're going to lift one leg to the side, just as high as you can, which might not be very high, actually. Sorry, I have a little cold, so I'm trying to talk clearly. Now, what might happen is in order to get that leg higher, you might want to tip your body like that. But we don't want to do that because that doesn't help the hip mobility situation. All that's doing is sacrificing your form and tilting your body. So it's not actually creating any more mobility in your hip. You feel like it is because you're getting your leg higher. But you're only getting your leg higher because you're tipping your body, see? So keep your body nice and still. Only bring your knee up as high as it goes naturally within that hip socket. Don't tip your body at all. And watching from the front, I want you to make sure you're keeping both arms nice and straight. When you're lifting the leg up, watch this arm. You're not letting that opposite side arm do any of that. So keep those arms nice and straight, locked in. The only thing that should be moving is that leg. For this, we're going to do 30 seconds each side. So we will switch sides halfway through the 60-second set. Now, for anyone not getting onto the floor, it does look odd, but it does work standing using an incline. So, same thing. You're going to bend the leg you're going to be lifting. You're going to bend it, and you're going to lift to the side. This is annoying. There you go. Keep your head looking down. So it does the exact same thing. You're still doing that abduction. It looks a little weird. You're working against gravity in a little bit different way than the people on the floor, but it does have the same effect. So it works just fine. So if you are someone staying off the floor, that's going to be a great option for you for our fire hydrant. All right, last station, number 6. It's a half kneel behind the head rotation. It's super exactly what it sounds like. So we're in a half kneel position. Hands are behind the head. We don't want you to interlock the fingers or anything. You always want to keep blood flow nice and, well, flowy. So hands behind the head, nice loose grip there. And we're going to twist as far as we can one direction, rotate, and then rotate as far as we can the other direction. Yeah. We're going to switch legs halfway through. And so going as slow as I just did, you really might only go like 2 or 3 each direction within the 30 seconds before it's time to switch. But the thing to remember here is to keep everything else nice and still. So watch out for this leg, not letting it like turn and dip like this when we're rotating. That defeats a lot of the purpose. Also keep your elbows open. This is a lot of the shoulder mobility component. When you're twisting, this direction's a little easier. When you're twisting, we might want to bring that elbow in like this to help us feel like we're twisting farther, but we want to keep it open. This all helps this chest and shoulder mobility staying open. So we don't want to let the elbows come in like this ever. Okay, so try your best to keep those elbows at all times open. Halfway through at the 30-second mark, we're just going to switch legs just to get even on each side. Doesn't really change anything with what's happening up here. But you might notice one side versus the other because a lot of this is involving our hips and our lower part of our spine. You might be able to twist farther with the legs in one side more than the other. You might surprise yourself on that. So again, open elbows, hands lightly behind the head. Don't lock your fingers in. Let your head, your gaze go in the direction of your torso. Anyone staying off the floor, it's going to be what we call a seated lunge. So a seated lunge, you're sitting on a bench or something or box, and you're like kind of off the side like this, kind of mimicking a lunge. So it feels a little tippy. You got to use a lot of the strength in this leg to keep you upright, but it's the same idea. So you're in a seated lunge off the side of a box or a bench or a chair. Now the switching though will be a little more cumbersome because you do have to get up and stand up and go to the other side. But other than that, it's not a really big difference. So, okay. And if that's just not working for you, something isn't feeling right, we can take it to a standing rotation as well. Okay. All right. That's our last station, number 6. Okay, and the finisher this week, I'm just calling it a finisher, not a team builder, because we're not working as a team in any sort of way. We're going to end with just some steady state cardio, because this week's workout isn't super aerobic. It will be in the sense that we're just constantly moving and we're going up and down off the floor and blah, blah, but we're going to do 5 minutes of steady state cardio once the full routine is done. So think of which machine you would like. I know some of the machines we only have one, like a lot of the stair climbers. I guess a couple of our gyms have 2 of those, but the rowers, maybe the Airdynes, but whatever. But we have plenty of ellipticals, plenty of treadmills, and steady state cardio though, we want this to be moderate to high intensity for you. So something where you would be moderately out of breath, where it would be very hard to hold on a conversation. So it's not like going for a casual walk, So we want to think of it as maybe a level 7 to 8 on a 1 to 10 intensity scale, and that's perceived exertion. So the way you perceive a level 7 or 8, everyone perceives that differently. So again, you couldn't carry on a conversation comfortably. You are a little out of breath, but you're not panting. And that could be a variety of different things. With the elliptical, it could be the incline level, or you can lower the incline and put the resistance level really high up. On the treadmills, you do not have to run on a treadmill to get a good workout. So what you can do is keep the speed moderately low, comfortable, but put that incline up. Have you ever tried a 10.0 incline on a treadmill? You can be walking very slowly, but get a really good workout if you have that incline up. So you don't have to run on a treadmill to get a good workout. Otherwise, the stair climber is always good, the rower. So lots of options. If you repeat Defy Aging throughout the week, I recommend trying a couple of different options for this, but it's going to be 5 minutes, steady state cardio as our little finisher this week. All right, team, and that is week 40. Our next mobility week is done. After this, we won't hit mobility again until week 50. So I will see you in 10 weeks for another mobility. Well, I'll see you next week for a regular Defy. But hope you enjoy some of these movements, and yes, see you next week.